finding the time and that push. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I am brand new at this. My first time, and I think like teachers, right? We write all the time, and been writing. I had this relationship with writing that I enjoy very much. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't think. I don't know how to say this, or going back and forth. And so I thought this, why not try it and learn the process of self-publishing, because it is a lot easier nowadays to publish your book. But then, what's behind that story, why you want to publish and why you want to do it and what is it behind it. So, it was a good experience, and just I found the right person that he really hold my hand to push me and ask me questions. And I was like, he's so organized. I mean, you can tell, even though, we just got introduced through Instagram, and I just saw his work that he did in some book.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, what about, I contacted like 3 people abroad, because it happens during COVID-19.
Yes.
When I decided to do this, and I wanted to find someone that probably in Latin America needed a job. And that's how I started really so I texted my friends in Ecuador and in Spain and Colombia. And I just happened to meet this guy in Colombia, and that was really good.
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear more. I have so many questions about this connection and how you got to that point to even know, hey, I'm ready for an illustrator. I'm ready to put the story together and make it what it is now. I'm Victoria with Lead From Home, and I have the great privilege and honor of speaking with self-published author Marisol. Marisol, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, how you got started with publishing a story? I am so excited about this story, and I'll tell you why in just a moment.
Well, I'm Marisol Kreuzer, and I work in Portland Public Schools in Portland, Oregon. And when Mother Nature sent all of us back to our rooms for timeout,
yes,
that's how I see it, really. I started looking through organizing here, trying to figure out what I was going to do. There was so much uncertainty, and I started cleaning my drawers, cleaning my rooms, and I found this box where I have some of my writings, and I found this story that I wrote a while ago. It's a narrative, and I just started looking at it, and I said, oh, let me read it again. So I did, and I polished it, and I sent it out to some friends, and they said, oh, I want to read more stories like this. So I started thinking, I always wanted to write a book, and I have postponed because life happens. So I started exploring how self-publishing works, and then also wondering, what am I going to write and why? So that's how it started. It started because I started, going through my drawers and found my writing, and I practiced with some of my poems that I also had written a while ago, and I started writing one about my dog. And so I started writing through these times. I remember exactly March 13.
Wow.
Schools were closed, and they sent us home, and I'm like, what are we gonna do?
Yes.
So
and in that time, you published a book. You wrote the story, you revamped it, and you put it out there. I started saying that one of the reasons why I felt connected to and wanted to share this is that it has a lot of cultural, it has a feel of family and very nice connections to the culture. One thing that drew me to the Heritage Team Extraordinaire was finding out more and reaching out, networking with other countries, like you mentioned, seeking out illustrators that were available in Ecuador and Colombia, I think you mentioned, and other places that help keep us connected. And I did also remember that, part of the oral storytelling, it's just part of the tradition, especially during this time when we're wanting to be with family. I know that over the dinner table, or over an open fire, or over a plate of food, we're talking about where the recipe came from, or somebody's experience that, how did they bring the milk to the house? And when so-and-so was away at war, there was only one phone in the entire neighborhood. And so we had to run, and we had to cross this person's house and this person's house. And there was such a sense of connectedness. So could you tell us a little bit about how writing this story helped you stay connected and just lift that voice, that story on the page?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I review it. I wrote it a while ago. It was just in one of those notebooks, and you just write it there. And then I pull it back out, and I start looking at it, and I said, wow, there is a moment in my life that I remember so vivid. That is this story that happened in my when I was going from South Korea to Vietnam. And I was wondering about that emotion, that feeling, that really the fear that I had at that moment. And as well as going back in time and said, like, wow, I can't believe I got there and I did what I did. And I also has been very connected to the students that I work for. And when I came here to Portland, Oregon, I started working with Spanish heritage speakers. And I just fell in love with the heritage language students that we had. And I did not much because I was coming from South Korea to Portland. I am from Ecuador, but all that.
Yes.
And I just started remembering about the students and the single story of a Latina or a Latino in the US. I wanted to change that. So I started writing this story because it happened to me when I was in Asia. And I just wanted my young people to read it and to find out that, we are capable of doing anything. We can travel, we can be anywhere. It's not always about the single story of the Latino or Latina in the US, but creating that opportunity to tell a story about what are we able to do. So my connection was with trying to find the inspiration that I once received and that I want to give to my students. And my family is dedicated the book to my mom, my grandma, and my aunt. That I grew up with storytelling. They always tell me stories, and to the readers that are just trying to find themselves in a book and connect. So my idea started with creating a secondary illustrated book. I don't know what order should I put it in.
That's okay.
But it's we have a lot of children's books,
right?
Illustrated children's book. And I thought, what about that young adult and reaching out that it's not a comic book, it's an illustrated book. So I was just thinking about how can I create something like that. So that's how I started, like thinking about these reluctant readers, students that may not see themselves, but at the same time, how can I inspire them? How can I teach them? How can I connect with my culture? And there is a lot of sayings in there because that's how I grew up too. I don't know. So I had all those ideas in mind. So I'm trying to still kind of like organize them.
Well, I liked what you said about going with an emotion, looking back and remembering something that kind of rooted you, and that emotion is actually pretty universal. The name of the story, the name of the book that you wrote, El Miedo, could you tell us more about the title and how you got there? Because it sounds like it is exactly what basically the golden thread about this situation.
Yeah. Well, I have to connect it to the situation we're living in the pandemic. I have really been afraid of the uncertainty, the not knowing. There's so many things, and I have experienced like all my fears. Like if I have a cough, I'm like, oh my God, somebody is sneezing. Oh, I touch my nose. Oh, what am I doing? So that fear, and I start looking at this story that I wrote. It was about also that fear that is created in your mind, in a way to protect yourself, but also you don't allow it to paralyze you. But then it's there, right? So what do you do with it? And the title is Y al miedo, ¿Donde Lo Llevas?
That's right.
And I was like, well, pretty much everywhere.
Does.
But, yeah.
It does. And like you mentioned, it's not just, yes, the language resonates with us, the situation, because it's coming from the perspective of you, where you were in that situation. But so many different cultures can resonate with this. And especially like you said, in this place of COVID, where we're in isolation and our anxiety and our preoccupation with all the small things, it really makes people realize that, you know what, where is it going to take you? How are we going to overcome? How are we still staying connected? And that is a really good message to share, especially during this time. What would you say? I know you said you dedicated this book to your mother. Did you share the story with her? Were you able to do that?
No, actually, my three women, mother, grandma, and they passed away a few years ago. And but they're always with me. I carry them with me all the time. So that's why they are really, really an inspiration. And yeah, they are who I mean, they made me in a way. And I'm so thankful of the way they raised me and all the stories. And I pass that on to my son. That I tell him stories every time. He's like, okay, here we go again. Yeah.
And he doesn't realize how valuable those stories are until he's a little bit older, I'm sure. Wow. And we celebrate that tradition by just continuing to share our stories and our missions and our triumphs and the things that we overcome. How did you come to the point where you wanted this published and you knew that this was its time?
Yeah, I mean, it happened. Like I was thinking about how am I going to remember this year, and I was thinking about what am I going to do to remember this year that is so intense, right? So I did some volunteer work online, and then I reached out to find illustrators around in Spain, Ecuador, and Colombia. And I was trying to find illustrators that may need a job or something. And I said, well, I don't know, this is my first try. And I found and I met Helmut, and he supported me through that process, and then I got like, okay, I can work with someone, I can go learn. But then September came and I went back to work, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna put this on the side, as we do with some of our more exciting things. And he was able to ask me questions. He said, okay, do you need help? How's it going? Did you do this? Did you do that? And he started asking me all these questions. He said, okay, let me pull it back again. And I started working on it, and he kept asking me, and when do you plan to publish? And I said, well, soon. And then some other friends also told me, are you going to publish?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, but I have to read all this because it's self-published. And
right.
It's available for all of us. It's just about learning the process. The companies really right now have it pretty streamlined. They help you out really on like, what do you need to do first, second, and third. But you have to find the time. You have to find the time to do it on the weekend after school, at night. And I started getting excited because it really kept me busy and kind of forget about what was going on around. The news, every time I turned on the news, there was something happening. And I started getting into that energy, that just self-driven energy. And I said, no, I'm going to publish it this year. And went back and forth into trying to do the layout and everything. And I said, I know it's not going to be perfect because, I am also a sabotager of my own.
I think that speaks to the creativity in everyone. We want it to be perfect, and we have an image in our head about how we want it to be. And then to communicate that in paper, it's something that's tangible, something that we can take away or share to others. And I can totally relate to that. One of the things that I heard you say was making sure that this particular story, spoke to an audience that was maybe overlooked sometimes when it comes to literature. And I'll make a confession here. I grew up not seeing my face, my language, or hearing it. So it was one of those things that when I started seeing it didn't matter what it was. If I saw somebody that had brown skin, that had an accent like grandma or like my tia, or had that a loud kind of charismatic energy in a movie, oh my gosh, my heart, I say this all the time, but my heart sung. And I know that, like you said, we really try our hardest. And I'll put myself in there because I know when it comes to the young, our preschoolers and our maybe 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, we really try to nurture that language early. And then somewhere in there, a little bit of it goes away. I don't know if it's because our projects are going other places, but I love the idea of making sure that we don't miss out on our adolescence and our future, because we want to maintain that connectedness to the culture and to make sure that they see, and especially during a key point in time when we're identifying with who we are and finding out what makes us who we are, our history, however it is that we see it, perceive it, whatever reality we create, we want it to be powerful and empowering. And I love the idea that you made sure that, we can elevate the language here. We can talk about deep things and something that's going to push you into thinking and making up, I don't want to say making up, but going a little bit deeper in this story, especially for our youth.
Yeah, I was a teacher for 10 years for ESL and Spanish. And then I moved into a TOSA position that is teacher on a special assignment. And I was able to visit other classrooms and go with other adults in Portland. And I went to a school. I remember this was my first year out of the classroom. And I was the first Latina and first Spanish speaker in that position as a teacher on a special assignment in my district. And I went to a classroom where there was Guadalupe. It was a 6th grade class, and it was a school with the majority of students were white. And one of the students told Guadalupe, "Look, she looks like you."
Yes.
And I just heard that, and I looked, and she smiled. I have never forgotten that day.
Yeah.
It was the day that I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to support the community. I want to be able to support students in the secondary track, but in a different way. And I've been trying to figure this out. So when this story came about, I was telling the illustrator to make sure that that the hair looks curly, just like yours.
I do the same thing when I want to see the curly hair. I want to see that. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I just cut it out. also, this last month, and I just cut it because it was up to here and there. And it was so, and I'm transitioning to my gray hair now. But I was making sure that, and that one of the things that I kept saying is like, I want the kids to notice that, the hair, the conversation. So, it's just a dream that I had a while ago, and also that push that I'm sure comes from the students that I work for.
Yes.
And that some of them may see me only once or twice a year, but they don't forget me.
No.
The next year I go back to visit a classroom or to visit a teacher, they remember me. So they inspire me, and I have many different stories to tell about that. But so this is my first, and I thought, well, why not? Why not to continue? And I'm thinking about the next one already, and it's like, okay, let's make sure this one gets out there. And I really hope it gets to a student that can see himself here, another colleague that can see themselves here. It's an easy reading, but it is very, very personal. It's a true story, and it has that culture component.
Yes.
Especially the first line the other day, I was reading it out loud. It says, "Y yo viajaba perfectamente sin perro que me ladre."
I love it.
Oh, yeah. And that's how my grandma used to speak. I mean, she always used a lot of slangs, and my mom too, and I do it myself. And so it's just a tradition that goes on, right?
Yes.
So I really hope it gets to a student that will enjoy it and connect.
I'll tell you this. I want to say thank you so much for putting that out there and for making it as authentic as it is. It's a part of like you said, the oral tradition, the language, what we hear, what we actually hear, and how we process information. One of the things that I know that I struggled with when COVID came, and I'm far away from my family, so it's already been 3 years since I've seen my family, so it's been really tough. But the beso y abrazo, we are a passionate and engaging people, and so when we're said, hey, 6 feet, that's like the other side of the county, or the other side, the distance is just so far. And making sure that we're able to see just little bits and pieces of our culture, and hear the stories or hear experiences, whether they're positive or maybe a little bit of a struggle, it still makes an impact. It plants that seed that, I'm connected by this language, by, how I look, how I sound, and even by this universal thing that, like you said, we want to see people that look like us. We want to share that. We want to share this experience. This happened to me. and make sure that everybody understands that, it's okay. It's okay that we all struggle. It's okay that we all feel deeply. And it is absolutely something to celebrate. And it keeps us, like I said, connected. And I'm so glad that you have taken that step to lead by example, knowing that, here's my idea and I am putting it on paper so that others, because I recognize that it makes that much of a difference. And I'll tell you, just like your student, Guadalupe, I feel the same way. I will always remember the people that made that impression in a place where maybe I was the only one, or in a place where I may not have been the most popular in the area. And so when I heard, somebody helping another person and they struggled with the language, and I was standing so close by so that I could help them make a purchase at the store or something else, things like that helped me stay connected. So wherever you are out there, just know that there are people writing their stories, writing your stories, and staying connected. Marisol, can you tell us a little bit about where we can get your story? Where can we get the book?
Yeah, of course. It's published in Bookbaby. I can give you the what is the, it's called Miedo, Donde Lo Llevas, and we can. I'm gonna copy here. I can give you in the chat the link.
Yes.
And you can. You can obtain it at the website. It's there, and then you can read a little bit about the description about myself, the author, the illustrator as well. And we have a picture here in the back. And
I see your hair.
Yeah, that was my long hair, and we just started talking about this story and how the illustrations were just going to be part of the bigger picture. And I don't know, some of my friends that read it were like, I'm really glad that you're telling a story about when you were traveling, because I was traveling abroad for a while, and say, yeah, because I know we all have incredible stories, and I am 100% sure that our students have stories that they want to tell us, and I really want them to be able to tell their story. They're experts in their life, and as we are experts in our. I tell my friends usually, the one thing I know how to do well is be me.
Yes.
That's the one thing I know how to do well. So what about I start writing about my stories and hope to bring, peace to my mind of all the stuff that is happening, instabilities, remembering how grateful I am to be here, to be able to have this opportunity as well, and just be able to share with the world. Now it's really for whoever wants to read it, and I hope it connects with you. But it's my first.
I'm already connected. I love the idea, and like you said, I am one of those that loves or gravitates to a true story, one that kind of, especially one that starts out with a line like that, and where I can look and I can see, what happens next, and I love it. Like I said, the whole idea behind the story is really just something that is I resonate with. So I really applaud that. Are you thinking of other stories to follow up with this?
Yeah. I have one that I started writing that I also wrote a while ago, and I was thinking about y el amor. Donde Lo Llevas. Yeah, so it's the beginning, I know, and I'm just thinking about like, because I'm afraid I'm putting myself out there, right? And I know my friends are really kind and loving and all that, but I also know that I am opening a door that it's for people to read and to get to know me more. And I also feel like, wow, I am being brave because I'm putting myself out there, and I'm daring myself to do something else too. So I'm taking it a day at a time right now. I'm really excited. I saw, like I said, I saw my first copy because I was telling my son, doesn't matter, I'll buy myself one copy at least.
Yes.
And but it is selling with my friends and people that I know that speak Spanish, and people that are trying to reach out to young adults as well. And but the point really here is that I create something that I'm offering to the world, and I'm offering to my students, to my community. And I hope to continue next year with another story and slowly get my place. But this is one of those things that I love doing, and I just feel that it's so much excitement. And I really, really encourage people to go ahead and do the writing, take time to search and investigate about self-publishing, and you see the experience is really rewarding. I don't know.
I think that you said one big thing that is I'm a creative spirit too. So that's one of the reasons why when I heard, yes, I'll definitely talk to Marisol. I know that I've researched what it takes to be a writer and how, when can you officially call yourself a writer and who says what. And the thing is, it doesn't matter. Like you said, I wrote a book and I finished it from start to finish and I published it and it's out there for the universe to explore. And you did your piece. The story is out there and now it's up to everybody else. And I'll tell you this, the fact that, you know, the story behind the story, the journey there is an accomplishment. And like I said, I applaud that. A lot of people will ask, you know, well, what makes a writer a published writer? And it's that process, like you said, doing the homework, doing the studying and finding out what step, even if it says step 1, step 2, step 3, the process is kind of like somebody who's running and training for a marathon. It's the mental game. It's that mindset that says, I accept my vulnerability. I accept being open to criticism. I accept somebody loving my book as much as I did, because it's a piece of who we are. And I'll go ahead and speak a little bit in there too, because I feel the same way. Let's see, what is one thing that you found was the easiest part of publishing or coming to that final hurdle of publishing your book? What was one of the easiest thing that you might have thought was going to be a hard issue?
So, the Bookbaby.com site have the steps to follow, and then they ask you to, you upload your cover, and then you upload your script, and so that part was like, oh, this is just drag and drop. I mean, I didn't have I was just dragging it up to the website, and then they will check certain things. For example, the way the name is written is going this way. They will send me an email and said, well, in the US, we write it upside down the other way.
Right.
And I said, I want to keep it this way because it's in Spanish. And
right.
And we did it with somebody from Colombia as well. So I just want to keep it that way. They said, oh, okay, perfect. So that was easy. After I just made up my mind about, like, I don't want to do that many changes. And also I was just okay with not being perfect.
Right.
That's the part that I was, thinking. I was like, okay, I'm going to turn in everything there, and they will, email me back, and they said, you need to review this. And so that was really good, because I felt like, oh, they're really trying to make sure that I'm okay with what is going to be published. So that was easy. Getting to that point, it was, I have many emotions.
Yes.
Because he was writing it and he was enjoying it, and then he was talking about it, asking somebody to read it, and then I didn't want to read it anymore, because it's like, okay, I read it so many times, I can't read it anymore. And then when it got published and I got my first copy, I was like so excited. And now when I read it, I can see so much more. I can see all the love that I put in here.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the self-publishing sites now, I think there are many. I went with this small company because I just wanted to try something out, and they walk you through and they answer your questions, and so I wasn't alone in the process, and maybe that was also the reason why I chose to do it this time, because I was always talking to somebody else, and it was also making me forget about the reality that we're living in. But I also feel that, oh, I'm gonna finish something, and and I 100% agree with you about what makes you an author, what makes you a writer. I think we are all writers. We are all writers, and we have to teach our kids that they are writers.
Yes.
It's not about writing a novel of 300 or 3,000 pages. It's really about writing with feelings and feeling good about what you're writing. So I think we are all writers, and we need to pass that on to our students. And there's no such a thing as perfection. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to have a mistake. It's just what you do with it, right?
That's right.
And that's what I'm looking at right now. I mean,
it really is. Everything that you just said, it's that important just to get the story out. And I'll leave with this, is that when it comes to the oral tradition, those stories, it's so important to get them written down. I was one of the only grandchildren of, my grandmother's, grandbabies. I was one of the ones that was there cooking and baking with her. And I am probably the only one that remembers the recipe for pan de campo by memory, because I never wrote it down, and I should have, but I remember all of the ways that she would, here's your hand, open your hand, and, make the measurements there. And I know everybody can relate, but it's always been told, write it down because you can keep it, but I value it here, and I keep it here, and it warms my heart. It makes my heart sing. But what happened to everybody else?
Yeah,
it's kind of a little selfish.
Yeah.
I'm a little selfish there. And so that's one of the things that I say, you did such a wonderful job of planting that seed for others and being a you're telling your story. And even with all those questions that say, am I doing this right? And being vulnerable, you pushed through it and you did it. Now we have just a few more minutes because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I love talking books. I am a bibliophile. I love books. But I do want to ask, is there one thing, if you could tell any young student or a teacher, an educator that is teaching our young students out in the schools or online, what would you like to leave a lasting message? What lasting message would you like to leave?
I think what I mentioned before is that we are all writers, and we are experts in our own story. We should tell it. And our students have so much to tell.
I love it.
Yeah.
Somebody else needs to hear our stories.
Yes.
Somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to see our face. Somebody needs to hear our voice. And somebody needs to know that they're not alone. And so I, just like you said, Marisol, it really does speak to me, and I love it. I love that this is the message that we're carrying on for today, is to speak your truth, write it down, and let others know that they're not alone.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. Well, thank you so much. I enjoy very much talking to you. It's so inspiring as well. Leading from home, I love that. I just love your site. I love it.
Thank you so much for your time. And like you said, lead from home is just one of those things that makes me, during this time, being home, we can still be leaders. We can still advance and do things that maybe we never thought we could. And who says we can't? So I say thank you so much, Marisol, for your time. I am going to link the book there for anybody who has interest in it. If you have questions for Marisol, we will gladly forward them to her, and make sure that if there's somebody who has questions, definitely write them down in our chat box, in our comments, and we will definitely get those to her so that she can share more of her story and her journey. Like I said, let's bring life in it.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time, Marisol. Bye.
Bye.